Good afternoon. Well, we're back for round two. This is a heavyweight fight here going on with some serious conferencing, conversating, and teaching of experience, exposure, and most definitely love to all the young men of the urban area that does have this publication and telecast. I'm here now with a young man that I'm so proud of and that has walked that walk, talked that talk, but has had a heart of a lion and has been through it all. He is the public director of Orange Police Department of Public Safety, Todd Warren. And I also have back with me one of the most exclusive educators and the son of the legendary Frank Verducci Jr. I'm so happy that we're here, and we're going to jump right into this here. And we're speaking of your most precious jewel. If you rob me of all my money, you have nothing. But if you rob me, or I don't know the severity and the importance of my last name and where I come from, the tribe, you robbed me of everything. So, Brother Todd, y'all just take over.
You know, Pooch, it's interesting that you said that. The opening quote is very appropriate today. Scripture says a good name is worth more than silver and gold. A good name is worth more than silver and gold. And the fact that you're here in your father's name, and your father has impacted countless young people.
Thank you very much.
And a lot of times in our circles we'll say, well, we see a young person, who's your father? My father's so-and-so. And if your father's a well-respected individual, come right on in. So it's important to maintain a good name, a good reputation, and a good attitude, especially working in law enforcement. Your attitude dictates whether people want to be bothered with you or not.
True.
And you need to maintain a good rapport. For example, on the street, if an officer has a good name, people are going to say, well, no, he's a pretty decent person. Officer so-and-so is coming, you guys fall back. You know, and it's important that young people understand who they are and whose they are.
You know, he's opening up a book of knowledge, and I'm smiling with jubilance because, as I stated in the inaugural, this young man has walked the walk. He's done it all. And it's so great, and it's such a blessing to see that he totally has taken the importance of his uncle, which was among the first assemblymen in the county of Essex and New Jersey, Big Willie Brown. I say big, not just from the physicality, but from what he stood for, stood on, stood by. And I am a recipient of some of his visions. He took the time. And what's funny is that now that this young man, because I got to get into this here, how did you get into law enforcement? The football player, wait, Frankie, the young, strong, he's been this size, like I said, since about 15, maybe 10 to 15 pounds, okay? But he's always been a bruiser. Nice guy, but nothing to push over now. Oh, it's another side behind that smile. And he had hair then, too. How did you get into law enforcement? Because your family primarily has been into politics.
Well, I come from a family of service.
Servants.
Yes. My uncle, late Assemblyman Willie Brown, said, go to school, educate yourself, come home and build your community. I watched him come up, part of the civil rights era. Back in 1951, my mother was a participant in a lunch counter sit-in in Seneca, South Carolina. The sheriff told my grandmother, if she does this again, we're going to run you guys out of town. I watched all the great work of the men and women that helped raise me. So it was really a no-brainer for me. And I've always wanted to be in a position where I can help people. I could be a voice for the voiceless, defense for the defenseless. And I like the action, if you will. There's nothing boring about it. So,
I'm sorry. I told you all, didn't I? I told you.
It's the truth. I mean, it's an occupation I've been doing for 28 years now. I started out in juvenile probation.
Yes, you did.
I worked in juvenile family court. I went on to work at the Essex County Jail. Went to the police academy in 1995. Went to the Essex Union County Auto Theft Task Force. I was assigned to internal affairs for, I think, 7 years. Began to move up throughout my career, obtaining all types of training. 2004, I was appointed to the position of warden of the Essex County Juvenile Detention Center.
Yes, sir.
2 years later, I was the director. 2012, I was appointed to the position of deputy police director in Orange, and now I'm serving as the director. And throughout all those years of service, I've learned one thing important: operate under the spirit of humility and excellence. Because your humility is that thing that gives you grace when you make a mistake. Two of the greatest words in the English language: grace and mercy. Grace is getting what you don't deserve. Mercy is not getting what you do deserve. So
True.
When you operate under the spirit of humility, it helps you when you trip and fall every now and again.
Awesome. I hope the young athletes, some of the older gentlemen understand that mercy and grace, may I, thank you, excuse me, thank you, are still applicable in this day and time, which we were all descendants of and raised under that aspect. Do you care to speak on it? They just come on in here.
Just to echo what was said already, the lessons I grew up with were, your name is gold. Mm-hmm. If you tarnish that gold, don't come back home.
Right.
That's it. And I know other family members whose fathers told them the same thing. If you get in trouble, especially with the law or anything like that that's going to disgrace my name, change your name.
Right.
Well,
don't come back here.
Well, wait now. That's a good subject there. Most of our parents would come and see about us if we were protecting and trying to be a shepherd. But if you did the goofy, now you're on your own. Now, going from that, let's get into a little bit of the importance of today's young men, because you just left that. We passed that a while ago. You just left that. So parlay how your 5 yards in a cloud of dust days pertain to the kids now that think it's about the bling, the money, and not understanding, can you play the game or can you play the game? You like that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think young people need to ignore the distractions. You know, number one, dream the impossible dream. Dream big.
Okay.
A lot of young people don't dream. I am where I am because I've always dreamed. You know, dream big dreams and avoid or ignore the distractions.
But those same distractions have encountered all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Now the difference is, we passed the baton to you. You saw us growing up in the neighborhood, doing the goofy, maybe not doing the goofy as much, but you did some type of goofy because that's a part of being an adolescence.
Mm-hmm.
But choices, that's what I want you to get at.
Well, the reality is, I do a lot of consequences of crime presentations, and one of the lessons is the choices you make today will affect the rest of your life. There are young people who are fighting to get in prison.
Why?
They're men fighting to get out, but they're young men fighting to get in.
Why?
Because a lot of them are lost, a lot of them are disillusioned. They pay attention to the distractions that get them in there.
No.
Because a lot of them are not surrounding themselves with the right crowd for a number of reasons. Families have fallen apart. Mm-hmm. You know, I've always told young people to choose your friends where you choose your fruit. Hang
Always
around the
told
right
that.
crowd of people, because if I'm doing something wrong and you're my friend, you're my real friend,
Yep.
you're going to check me on it.
Yep, absolutely.
No,
That's the way I
check
grew
me.
up.
No. We were raised on that. Show me your friends,
And I'll tell you who
what
you
you'll be.
are. Yep. Mm-hmm.
The reason they're fighting to get in prison is because there are so many individuals and so many avenues that are closed to them that were open to us. So they feel a sense of security and entitlement and no responsibility. You have no responsibility when you are confined. You are now state property, county property, municipal property. You're given a cot, you're given something to eat,
3 meals.
3 hots and a cot.
and that's it. So on that decor, I really differ because I've been in the system 30 years on the opposite side. And a lot of the young men, once they're in there, they're still lost. It's not the old prison, whereas someone would try to educate you and teach you and show you a better way, so when you got out and got another chance, you would go free and go far. Now it's a redundancy of a chronic revolving door. And it starts earlier now because so many of the parents and adults are afraid to be adults. So speak of how your hardest coach, your hardest educator are not embraced by the masses, but those that are successful and have been successful and consistent on you, you embrace them in the abundance.
Well, I've had great men in my life. That's why the importance of men, fathers. They say it takes a village to raise a child, but sick villages raise sick children.
Ooh,
And a lot of our villages are sick.
don't go too deep now.
And the
You got to take it
reality is-
slow. You got to take it slow.
It is what it is, but it's the importance of men and fathers. I have a 10-year-old son who's a quarterback, and I'm on his back because failure is not an option. And I think a lot of men have dropped the ball for whatever reason, and a lot of women have dropped the ball because they weaponize their children against the father.
Can you explain that about, I don't want to bash women, regardless of their ethnicity, women, period, men, period, audience, children of God. How have they hindered their sons? Tell it.
Pampered, a lot of young boys are being pampered and sheltered by their mothers
I say enabled.
and enabled,
Come
and it's
on.
having an adverse effect on them down the line. The reality is, you can look at her, ask a woman, a guy asked a woman one day, your son grew up the way your son is, would you let your daughter date him?
Mm.
If I had a daughter, this wasn't my son, no, I wouldn't.
Why?
Because she realized that she dropped the ball. Children need fathers and mothers. Both parents are important. The reason that the 4 of us, my siblings and I, succeed is because we had a man and a woman in the home. And even if they're not under the same roof, to have a coexisting relationship.
He was present somewhere.
Yes, growing up in North, you know, it's easy to get in trouble. But I went close to the line, but I never put my foot over it because I had a fear in this man named Melvin Warren who would not hesitate to lay down the law, verbally and physically.
Were you afraid? Wait a minute, Frankie. Was you more afraid of your father than the police?
I was more afraid of my father than anybody. The only person I feared more than my father was God.
Same with you? Same with me.
Listen, you know, I think I told you, my dad was working. He was supporting a family. He wasn't home a lot. And so I feared my mother first, and then my father, because I would get it the second time.
Because they would tell.
Oh, absolutely. There was no
the
secrets.
mother would tell your son, not our son, your son, I think, has something to say to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He don't want to listen.
It wasn't
to me.
wait until your father gets home. It's I'll take care of you now, and then you'll see what happens later too.
And what about the surrounding neighborhood? As dysfunctional as the neighborhoods were, we're all Newarkers. As dysfunctional as urban America was, there was still some type of structure with the hoodlums, with the drug heads, with the educated, with the shy boy, and with the gentleman that had the arterial lifestyle. Let's tell the truth. There was a certain amount of respect if you was leaned over, bent over, drugged up, or drunk. If you saw Miss Jones walking down the street, you'd straight up. She knew, but there was a certain amount of respect because you could always connect the dots of who you were affiliated with in your family. Now, today, since the phone, there is not that cohesive connection. Y'all
Neighbors
can't
don't
speak
know
on
one
that?
another.
Today we call it the hood. And the reason it's the hood is because we took the neighbor out of hood. And that's why when Miss Jones walked by and you had cigarette smoke in your mouth, you'd hide the cigarette and hold it in and hope she walks by quickly.
Sometimes she'll stop and look at you.
She'll stop
and
and
you'd
look
have
at
to
you.
speak it. Oh,
Yeah, because it was a neighborhood. And being a neighborhood, she would discipline you and then take you home or go tell your
That's
mother.
right.
Sunday church,
Yeah, because everyone
Sunday
cared
mass,
about each
wherever.
other.
Yeah.
Everyone cared about one another, but now it's like every man for himself.
Do you think that has happened? Well, I don't want to get into the economics of monetary compensation and jobs and stuff. Why is it that the youth, I have an educator here, and I have a law enforcement man here. Why are these young people afraid to be great? We were all told, as you just stated, reach for it. You might fall short, but you're still higher than where you started.
You have no idea the condition of a lot of our children. At the juvenile detention center, 80% of my kids rated in third grade level, 20% were literate, 67% were gang affiliated, 33% were DIFUS cases, 80% came from fatherless households. And the reality is, I remember every Wednesday I taught a Bible study, Black History, Life Skills class. Half the class were Crips, the other half were Bloods. And I taught them how to tie a tie. I taught them respect for one another. Don't speak until I acknowledge your hand. And the number of fights began to reduce. They were reduced significantly. My mentor and friend, Ron Salahuddin, who took me over there with him, taught the Muslim kids. I taught the Christian kids. And they began to embrace each other. We read the Willie Lynch letter, talked about division.
You have to talk about Willie Lynch to our audience that might give them a little synopsis.
A slave owner from the West Indies who came and to the South and talked to slave owners about how to make a better slave, how to maintain that slave mentality. Put the light skin against the dark skin, the male against the female, the house Negro against the field Negro.
We can even take that further to Sicilian and Calabrese. Gotcha. You like that one, didn't you?
And I remember once talking to them, I said, well, your enemy uses division to conquer you.
Divide and conquer.
In Africa, we had the Hutus versus the Tutsis. I mean,
You're getting real deep on them out there in TV land.
And to answer your question, though, why, it gets back to the point. I remember a kid, Donald, raised his hand, and the question was, why are we doing what we do? Why are we the way that we are? And he said, well, nobody's ever taught us. And I'm looking dumbfounded because I'm thinking that how could you not teach a young man these certain principles about life? But I had a father. I had a strong man in my life. I've had men in my life. So it's like, wait a minute. These kids, 80% came from fatherless households.
You know, you can't parlay on that there because
What I want to add from an administrative standpoint, what I saw in the school was that there was a lot of enabling going on. And when I say enabling, it used to be when the teacher called your home, there was a consequence for that. If you did something wrong, there was a consequence at home for that. Today, when the teacher calls the home, it's, well, what did you do to my kid? So that respect has broken down, at least from my perspective of what I saw. Not in every case, but enough cases that you start to say, what's wrong with this picture? Now, there's bad teachers, just like there's bad lawyers, there's bad doctors, there's bad police officers. That's everywhere. You're never going to get away from that.
Okay.
But let's go to the base of what it is. What is the problem? I also agree that the breakdown of the family unit, everybody's out doing their own little thing. They don't get together for that dinner at night. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So with that breakdown comes all these other problems and issues that we have to deal with.
But Frankie, Todd, that has been the same cliche for eons. So it's not so much what is the solution. My question is, how do you approach someone that's never been approached and they're unapproachable?
Easily. One thing I learned while working at the Juvenile Detention Center is the power of love. I learned the power of love. You would think that these young men and young ladies that were confined were a bunch of animals, but they may have made some mistakes. But the reality is, they are still human. They still have hearts. And I learned the power of love. I didn't really raise my voice too much. You know, you have the toughest kids throughout Essex County in juvenile jail. And I remember saying to one kid, I had to reprimand him, and I said, I love you, man. I love you too, director. These are kids who want to be loved, but nobody will engage them. So when they're out in the street raising hell, we run and hide. But as a transformation leader, I go out and engage.
You have to.
Because see, we'll run and hide, and when they go away, we'll run out the street and shake our fist at them. But they're gone now, it's too late.
True.
I engage with the power of love. And when you talk to them,
not at them.
to them, and you show that you care, they will still make mistakes, but you know what? They'll begin to think.
I have found, and I have a teacher here, an educator, and a law enforcement officer, and a caring parent, and man of the cloth, that consistency, just like with coaching, your coach is on you, your coach is on you, your coach is on you. He knows you can take it. But that's because he knows there's something else inside of you. You think that he's picking on you, but he's looking for you to be the shepherd to show the rest of the flock you can. Remember the old Sesame Street segment that spoke of the little train and the big train? When the big train broke down, the little train just kept pushing. He said, I think I can, I think I can. When he finally got to the top and he blew his horn, he said, you know he can. He took care of all of the other big trains because they went down. I say that in reference because in all urban cities, urban stands for testing to me because you're hit with every and anything. I find that young people want love as you iterated, but it takes an individual that's confident within themselves and that has come through it and understands that that's a facade because they don't want everyone to know how hungry they are, how hurt they are, and last but least, unimportant they are. Once you take the time and you're consistent, not to grandstand them, it's going to be a little ruggedness at first, but your consistency, and you pull them to the side, they'll start to embrace that, and you'll see them open up. Because it's so much of a shell that protects the hole in their chest. Because you're taught, men are not supposed to cry. We're human. We bleed.
It's interesting. I remember when I was playing football at South Carolina State, and Coach Thomas was on my case all during camp. It really pissed me off. And he says, son, don't get mad at me when I yell. Get mad when I stop yelling, because that means I don't care anymore. There was a reason he was on my case. You understand? And the way that he was doing it, I couldn't really get mad at him because he wasn't like disrespectful, but he was pushing me. There was something he was trying to extract from me. And I didn't know what it was, so that's where my frustration came from. But he said, don't get mad when I yell.
Get mad when I
stop yelling. So that means I don't care anymore.
Well, I'll ask you this, hearing this for you too. As an administrator and as a top man, is that applied to you with your young recruits to come out too? Mm-hmm. Or should I say to your lieutenants and your captains, because you're far away from that?
I may be far away in terms of title, but I'm more hands-on. Because when we swear these young people in, every class, mothers have come up to me and looked up at me with a sad, scary look in their eyes. I already know what your son is safe with me. We're going to take care of him. I know he's going into a dangerous profession. I got him. I'm going to take care of your son. Relax.
What is different with the cops of today and our time? And I'm ahead of you. Because the game is different.
Yeah.
They're not athletes. They're not street guys. They're not neighborhood guys. They're in the house, computer conscious, very cerebral. But people skills, don't know.
It's interesting you say that. I got my master's degree from Fairleigh Dickinson, and I was in a class where we had a project where we had to integrate millennials into the workforce. So what are you talking about? So you mean to tell me I have to develop an initiative to integrate this generation into the workforce? So I have to change up my workforce or alter it, amend it, tweak it, so they can fit into this as opposed to them tweaking their attitudes. And they're different because there are recruits that'll say, well, I can't come today for the drug test. Can I come on Wednesday? Yeah, I'm going to go on vacation, or, there's a party or whatever. You come when you're told to come. So they're different. And this generation wants to know why. If a superior officer gives a directive, some of them are crazy enough to say, well, why am I doing that? But right,
Generation baby boomer, Generation X. Now, our generation with our parents and your uncle, we baby boomers. They thought we was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We thought X was crazy. Now this YZ or X, it's not Jay-Z, it's YZ.
Whatever.
Millennium is
Whatever they call
totally on another decor. Because you all was y'all was a little rougher than us.
Mm-hmm. I will say this though, as leaders, we have to identify their assets, their strong points, and allow them to offer their skill set to the department. A lot of old heads will call, past practice. This is how we used to do it.
Right.
But if this generation can break down 10 steps into 3, why don't we do it?
Much more productive.
Now he or she feels like they're a part of the process. Their opinion is valued, but the old head wants to hold on to the past.
Right.
You feel
I heard
the same way in
that.
education
I heard
too?
that quite often. But that's the way we always do it. Okay, so does that make it right?
Right.
Wait now.
So we shouldn't look at another way of doing it. We should just continue to doing it the same way.
Right.
I see you teaming up with this gentleman here, Generation X, and that's just here. I'm gonna go with the old baby boomers. I don't have the patience. My phone, I don't have the patience. You can't call and say, and speak to someone. Have you gotten better at that? Speaking to these animated machines, waiting on hold, being hung up on, and then again. So now with the young people of today, no problem. But they don't have patience or people skills or the concept to sit still, present themselves. How many kids don't have a pair of shoes, but Timberlands, have a pair of jeans, $80, but don't have a pair of slacks?
Yeah.
Talk to me.
I had a guy come for a potential candidate came for his command staff interview, and he was dressed like he was going to a cookout.
You got to tell the audience what's the cookout. Look, because this the way we go to a cookout, right?
He was dressed like he was going to a cookout or going to hang out with his friends. And one of the captains said, "Director, can I ask this gentleman a question before we start?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead." "Did you know where you were going today?" "Yes, to an interview." "Well, why didn't you dress accordingly?" He said, "I didn't know." But he may not have known. But however, if he wanted to know where the nearest party was, and you can Google it, then Google and like interview attire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, Chief. No, Chief.
Come on, man.
Chief, you have to understand. I'm going to give the young lads a nod at where we dropped the ball. When they see us dressed with a tie or a jacket, "Oh, you drip." I remember the first time a guy said, "What?" I got offended. "What you say?" No. One of my players pulled me. He said, No, coach, you look nice." Oh. But the terminologies throw me off, and the world is so relaxed now. We had school clothes, play clothes, Sunday clothes. Not now. These kids are barely clothed, barely housed. Speak of that. Both of you should have two different concepts, because you have kids to come to your class, your school, not your class no more, your school administrator, and you don't know if they ate. You don't know where they slept. You deal with them in the aspect whereas they're going from here to here to here, and they're considered misdemeanors, but you're just trying to make it.
Well, I look at each individual, as fairly as possible. He came in dressed like he was going to a cookout, but another young man came in with a pair of pants, shirt and tie, and a jacket. It wasn't the best in terms of quality, but you can tell that he put that together with pride the best way he could.
Okay.
It looked clean, it was pressed, it didn't really fit that well,
But he
but
tried.
you can tell he came from humble beginnings, but he tried.
Okay.
And I was so impressed with his efforts. I watched him walk in, and I whispered to the chief, I said, "We're going to hire this kid."
Now, what about the other gentleman? How did you feel about that?
The other gentleman, I felt like there was no effort. It's just like a nonchalant attitude. Let me throw this on and go see what these people are talking about, type of thing. And his attitude reflected what he was wearing. So if you don't take yourself seriously, nobody else will.
Stay there, Chief. Now, Frankie, how do you? I'm a little, because now we're gonna go to the playing field. You had guys where the team was already made, baseball, football. They cluttered together, but it's already made. So you come from across town. You could play, but you never played with these guys. How does that compare in the aspect of the gentleman? He was down, he was willing, but he had no directive. So would you cast him off because of the fact he fell short, as we say, no effort, didn't believe? But in essence, he maybe did. Tell me something, Chief.
Well, there were other factors in his background too, but
Okay.
I was just dealing with the attire.
Okay.
But you have to put forth that effort.
The eye candy.
Yeah,
Gotta have that. We were all taught that.
I mean, this kid, he came in, and I heard people making comments about his attire, but I said, leave him alone. That gentleman put effort into that. It might not have been Brooks Brothers. He may have
Be
gone.
nice.
He may
Be
have gone.
nice.
Listen, he may have gone to a thrift shop, but the effort that he put into that, I applaud him.
He took it seriously.
He took it seriously.
Okay.
It may not be something fancy, but you know what? In terms of character
He'll get there.
and integrity, I saw something in this kid, and you know what? He's one of the best I have now. And this was about maybe four years ago.
So there is a difference in the young people today that you could actually, I shouldn't say classify, because they always, I'm not going to use the word profile, they always classified us as we were growing as adolescents.
Well, look at it from the classroom perspective. You're talking about education. There used to be a code of dress
Okay.
in our school systems, right?
Yes.
The men were expected to wear, shirt and tie, not necessarily a jacket, but shirt and tie, look professional.
Penny
Women,
loafers or something hard
right?
bottoms.
Women were supposed to dress a certain way. Now that's all gone by the wayside. There's no more code of conduct
But we have no say-so in that.
because it's been taken away from us by the politicians, by the people that have too much to say about
No.
what's going on.
I say lack of participation from the parents and the hood or neighborhood.
Well, you
They
said
don't
we have
know
a
as
say.
much.
I have a say because number one, I buy my kids clothes, and number two, they live in my house under my roof that I have to pay for.
See? You're doing what your mother and father did
Exactly.
to us.
Exactly.
Comes back to the family
Or
unit again.
grandma did to us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That a grandmother now is 35. I'm serious.
And
That's
they've
crazy.
accepted all these other, forms of dress. Kids come to school with shorts and sneakers
what
on.
do you call them? Crocs.
Crocs,
And the lounge pants.
Listen, when I was an administrator, we were concerned about certain footwear because, God forbid, a kid trips on the stairs and you fall and you take 10 people with you. But the parent didn't see it that way. They felt it was their right to dress a certain way or to wear whatever they wanted, despite what was written rule. So if there's no backing, and when I say the politicians again, I'm not talking Republican, Democrat, I'm talking about the school board is the politics, right? So if the school board leaders aren't willing to support their school leaders on something just as simple as that, where do we go from there?
Well, I'm going to try this. What are some of the problems with dealing with law enforcement now?
Good question. Some of the problems, there are some bad apples in law enforcement, and there are some bad apples in our community.
Okay.
And we need to have two separate conversations. Law enforcement on law enforcement and community on community. And we need to agree that we have some bad apples.
When you say bad apples, what do you mean?
We have some cops who don't belong on the job. We have some people in this profession that they were punks in high school, and now you get a uniform, a badge, and a gun, and you want to be a tough guy. And when someone asks you when you ask for license or registration, or you're a tough guy, get out the car, lay on the ground. I don't want to lay on the ground. My aunt bought me this new suit. I'm not laying on the ground. There's some people who don't belong on the job.
I shouldn't be laughing, but I have to ask this question. I'm looking clean in front of him to you, Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, you always been a gorilla. So, are you saying that some you have to gas up? Watch this. Is it better to pull some of the air out than to have to gas somebody up that you know was a punk then and they still a punk now? See, I took it there. I didn't let him.
The uniform will gas you up.
Okay.
You carry a badge and a gun. That gun represents the power of life and death.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And that badge represents the thought.
Ooh.
Now, just like it's wrong for a cop to make you get out the car and lay on the ground and unnecessarily.
But isn't that procedure?
Wait. It's equally as wrong for a civilian or a resident or a commuter to jump up in the cop's face and cuss him out, spit in his face,
Yes.
push on him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said we both have, neither party is exempt from criticism. How about that?
Yes.
Neither party is exempt from criticism. But it seems like we'll protest some things. We'll protest when it's convenient.
You're not going there, are you?
We can.
Please.
I have nothing but time.
Please.
We protest when it's convenient. You know, there was this show, Cop Watch or whatever it was. They were following cops around with video cameras, trying to provoke them and things of that nature. Okay, I'll give you that. But let's keep that same energy when it's time for us to videotape Pookie and Ray Ray selling dope on the corner. Let's videotape the dirt that's being done. Let's videotape the parasites and the leeches in our community that are tearing our community apart. Let's not be one-sided. Let's be fair.
But that's for convenience that they do that.
Exactly.
Or lawsuits. Whereas in essence, to me, it's hard. All of us here have worked grass cutting, maybe worked at a Burger King or McDonald's when we coming through school. Of course, we didn't like what Mama was getting us from the Sears and Roebuck, so you want to get something a little more hip. These kids won't work. And we got paid $5 or $3.45. They won't work for $10.
Comes back to what I was saying about enabling. If you're given everything and you don't have skin in the game, where's your motivation? Where's your motivation come from? And then exacerbate that with not having a male role model to stay on your butt.
We have some mothers. Wait now. We have to give some of these women that are the breadwinner, that's what I'll say. The stern, the tough, the strong, the sensitive, the caring, the provider, captain of the ship. Got to give them love too, because they do a heck of a job.
Oh,
Yes, they
absolutely,
do.
absolutely.
Yes, they do. My son's favorite scripture, I say to him, if a man don't work,
Can't
he'll
eat.
say a man won't eat.
Can't eat.
You understand? They have to be taught a certain work ethic. You have to be taught a certain work ethic. You have to prepare your children to learn before they get to school. You send them to school ready to learn.
And I see that that's not happening.
Now, what if the teachers, I'll have to turn it this way. What if the teachers don't exuberate that type of energy and emphasis to teach? They're just there for a check.
And that gets back to
Same
what
in
Todd
your
was
profession,
saying,
too.
okay? There's bad teachers too. How do we weed out the bad teachers? Well, they created a law, they created something that says you get so many evaluations, observations, and then they put you on a corrective action plan and all these steps that they put in there. But if you don't have the backing, again, from the superintendent, again, if I'm the principal, if I don't have the backing from the superintendent, who doesn't have the backing from the school board to go through those steps to get rid of that person, it's a bunch of hot air. It's
Same for
writing,
you
it's...
too?
And it's in terms of teachers, how about this? Let's pay teachers more. Anyone that sows into the life of my child or my children, you have a friend for life. The teacher tells me that can all parents give paper towels or pencils, whatever. I know you have close to $1 billion budget, but I'm going to bring in whatever that teacher asks for because you are sowing into the life of my child.
Okay.
You have a friend for life. We can pay Floyd Mayweather millions of dollars in the ring to beat the hell out of somebody. We can pay Jordan and LeBron millions of dollars. What I forgot the quarterback making $700,000 a game.
Jackson.
Yeah, but watch this. We spend money for song and dance, sport and play. Our teachers are some of the most important people on this earth. Why are we not compensating them properly? Why are we not supporting them properly? And why are we, some of us, not all, some of us are sending our children to school unprepared, in need of a referee, in need of therapy, in need of a whole bunch of things that they should get at home. So now you're disrupting my child's education because you can't act right or exercise self-control and discipline in the classroom.
You're a product of the public school too, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so are you.
Absolutely.
What do we have to say about that? Right on piggybacking what you just said, not throwing any stones, but what is that really about? Is that about politics too?
So it's about
Or it's
having a
about
mother.
distribution of money?
It's about having a mother and father.
Go back to the family unit. We started with that, and we're going to keep coming back to
Because you have to be a certain
that.
kind of
That's
tough
the
to go
heart.
through public school now.
You do, but 1 + 1 is 2 universally. If it's being taught at North Academy and it's being taught at Barringer, you have to get it. And when you have a mother and a father at home that says, if you act up,
I'm acting up with you right
when you
there.
get home, I have something for you. See, my problem was they would ask my siblings, did you do this? Did you? When it came to me, my mother would say, why did you? Because I was already guilty, and there was no semblance of innocence.
Right.
But I knew how to go close to the line, but I'm not going to step over because I knew that there was going to be a consequence.
I'm sorry, everybody I'm laughing, but it's funny because this is old school. See, there's this new thing that's revving the nation, like the Flintstones used to say, we're going to do the way out. And I look at it just like that there, because you don't have that many options except you will, you have to, and you must. Instead of I can't, you owe, I deserve, and I'm entitled.
Entitlement. How about when we were growing up and we played in organized sports, there was a winner and there was a loser. Mm-hmm. And the winner got the trophy and the loser got a handshake, right? What came after that?
Participation award.
We're going to give everybody a ribbon. We're going to give everybody a trophy. There are no losers. Are you kidding me?
That?
Really?
How do you feel about that?
I think it's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Because now that's the product that we got of that. We
It's
told
entitlement?
everybody that you're a winner, that there is no loser, that your self-esteem is more important. I'm not saying self-esteem isn't important. You mentioned it before. But what did we do to that whole group of kids?
Are we saying that it has been watered? I'm going to use.
Yeah, we're saying you're a winner, but not just in this game. So why should you get an award?
And so I grow up with that entitled philosophy or feeling that, oh well, that's okay. I didn't
do my best.
I didn't run the 100 in 10.4. I ran it in 12.5. I'm still going to get a. What? How does that have any meaning then? Where's the meaning to? We don't give. Well, we do give the Super Bowl champions rings. The runners-up, they get $75,000 at each one of them, right? They get money. Mm-hmm. Okay, but that's on a different stage. I mean, I don't want to. That's not apples to apples.
Well, I must say this here. I think since '44, the 44th president, the entitlement for the young people is entitlement. First of all, there is no civil rights that you see people fighting for anything. There's no education, because if you're not educated, it's okay. And as you all just emphasized, everyone gets a participation trophy. It's not as big as the most valuable player, but I get a trophy anyway. So why should I even put forth the effort?
Mm-hmm. Or on the flip side, why should I, as a great athlete, why should I work hard? We're all getting an award anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm the MVP, but there's going to be no MVP award because everyone wants to feel like a winner. So now I feel cheated. If I was a star running back or whatever, now I feel cheated.
Well, I have another one. Being that we have a Seton Hall man here, we got a South Carolina and Maine.
Hillside. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm Albany State, the little guy. I'm the little guy. Now, what's funny to me is that how did athletics help you keep out of trouble? And you know what I'm talking about.
Well,
because that's right there together.
Well, my mother always said a busy student is a better student.
Okay.
The scripture says an idle mind is the devil's workshop.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Athletics taught me a lot about life. I played at Hillside and excelled. I came home to my parents, who made sure that my work was done. Wasn't always done, but but athletics kept me out of trouble because it kept me busy.
But you didn't. Let me say this here, Frankie. I know for a fact there was a bunch of them. I mean, 20 or more on the porch every day after school. And they was young then. They wasn't even in high school then. So then when they got to high school, and every year they would come home after college, after I came home from college and service, they probably still meet somewhere till this day. They would meet there and go and do whatever, but it was always a group. It wasn't no one or two. If you saw one, you saw the other. Mud and all them guys, and they're ahead of you. Mm-hmm. So how did that propel you all to stay so tight for the right thing? We do a little mischievousness, but it didn't go. You had the guys that was boys amongst men that was doing men things and consequences. Then you had those that was like yourself, still boys amongst men, but you knew how far to go because you had the answer. Then you had those that now are, as you say, the supermen. Now you buffed up, muscled up, gunned up, and everything else now, 40 years later, and don't count.
Well, our friends cared about us. I don't want any yes men around me. Our friends held us accountable. We held them accountable. And the reality is, you know when you're wrong. You know when you're dead wrong.
Dead wrong.
But when you have friends that care about you and they hold you accountable and vice versa, that's what helped. And we all knew that we wanted to excel athletically. So you can't go to college and play ball and, for example, do drugs.
You got a state number.
Right. So there are certain things that we can do and we cannot do. Just like in law enforcement, I knew I wanted to go into law enforcement, so I knew I had to keep my record clean. I knew I had to watch the crowd I hung around. I always tell young people the 5P principle: proper planning prevents poor performance. I had to be prepared.
You got to say that slow now. You're on television. Say it slow.
Proper planning prevents poor performance. So people will say, well, how did you get where you are? My relationship with God.
Because you know people think you was just given.
Right. My relationship with God, my family background, my support system, my village, belief in myself. And it wasn't always easy. And I put in the work. I stayed in shape. I stayed out of trouble. I went and got my degree from UMass Amherst. Went to the police academy. Got my master's degree from FDU. I did everything that it took to meet the requirements to get where I am today. The reality is, everyone sees the glory, but they don't know the story.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
You'll see my brother, who's the mayor, an attorney, a former assistant prosecutor, but you didn't see that when I left for work, he was at the table studying for the bar exam. When I came home, he was at the table studying for the bar exam. And he passed on the first try. So we see attorney Dwayne Warren Esquire, yeah, okay. But you don't know what it took to get there. So you don't realize that growing up in North, me and my two brothers sharing a room the size of a closet. My sister's room was just big enough for a twin bed and a chair. See, you weren't there when the stove was the primary source of heat in the wintertime, where my mother put the big curtain up to the kitchen to keep the heat in the back of the house. See, you didn't see that. You didn't see that the summer lunch program started by Mayor Gibson, that the Speedy program, that food saved so many families a lot of money. That grilled cheese, a block of cheese, and a big can of peanut butter that ripped your bread. See, that's you didn't see that.
I do remember the Easty Peasty days.
Yeah. So it's like you see the glory, but you don't know the story. You see the titles, but there was some work that had to be put in. Whatever you put into life is what you get out of it.
But you all's titles do not make y'all. It goes back to your most precious jewel again. Your last name, what you come from, your tribe, and what you envision yourself to be. What do you think that we could tell those that do happen to look at this here, young or old, most importantly, to never forget, never relinquish in the aspect of trying to go forward? I will start by saying, I am my brother's keeper. If I bend down to step on you, I'm down there with you. But if I lift and try to help you up, it shows I'm uplifting and that my effort is not in vain because I'm not better than you. I am you.
I would tell young people that there's greatness in you. One of my favorite scriptures is 1 John 4:4. Greater is he, with capital H. Greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. There's a spirit inside of you. Just like everyone has a six-pack, but it's covered up with different amounts of fat because of our eating habits. But if you diet and you exercise, you'll have the six-pack, you'll have the eight-pack. If you feed into that spirit, that thing that's inside of you, you keep digging deep and trying to see what that thing is, greatness and success is inevitable. But you have to put in the work.
I would say that the older you are, the wiser you are because of the mistakes that you made in the past. And you can't forget where you came from, who brought you to this point. You know, if I was going to look at my own life, I'd have to say my mom and dad. You know, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be who I am right now. The younger folks, they've got to look at introspectively at themselves and say, who am I and what do I want? And work for it. You got to put in the work. That's the best thing that anyone could tell a young person. It's not going to be, we just hand you the paycheck or we hand you the trophy like you've been getting.
Do you think society has come to that point where it just relinquishes or you're entitled because they felt that they were losing and too harsh? Because the generation behind us, as the Bible says, and the Quran and the Torah, the generations will get bigger from a physicality perspective, but their interior is so much more softer. And you can see it. I see it in coaching the young men. They're talented, they're stronger, they're bigger, they're faster. But if you get to them, they have a tendency to turn inward until they see, after you done broke them down, you build them back up. And that's one thing that we dealt with your father, your uncle, my daddy, is that they were men, as Bo Diddley would say. I have to use it, not a man, it was a man. And they was going to be a man till they left this earth. And you would respect them because of the fact they had been through the gauntlets of life. They had seen, and the things that they've gone through, we're not built like them.
But they also didn't allow society to dictate what they were and were not going to teach and do with their children. They didn't allow society to dictate that.
That's heavy. That's heavy. Parlay?
Again, we come back to relationships and the family unit. And what I like that Todd has said, I'll bring religion into it as well too, because our families today have lost their way.
So, in closing, because there's going to be 2 or 3 parts of this here for sure, because we're talking on some things that are of a very firm foundation that has been consistent over generations. And it's for the children that know who he is, because he is who he say he is. You can call him what you want. But something has happened in all of our lives that's prevalent to see, that it was the grace and the mercy, but it's for those that have gone on. They're in a meeting now, and they're watching us. They're watching us. They're laughing. They're feasting. But they're watching each and every move we make, but they're also watching how, are you your brother's keeper? Do you care for others more than you do yourself? Because it's not about us now. We've had that. It's about teaching now. It's about aiding now. It's about protecting now. And it's about informing now. Let me tell you.
It's about nurturing also.
Come on and close my show, man. Both of you guys. Because this is only the beginning.
Well, every young person that's watching, I would just say that there's greatness in you. Whatever you put into life is what you get out of it. Learn, a wise man, I always tell them, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others, a fool learns from his own. Look at people that came before you and learn from their mistakes. Don't make the same mistake in order for you to learn from it. Choose your friends the way you choose your fruit. The decisions you make today will affect the rest of your life. It's not what you go through in life, it's how you respond to it.
I haven't heard that in a long time, but it's so true.
And you know, and it's not what people think about you, it's what you think about yourself. I remember overhearing one of my family member say that I was going to go to jail because I had an attitude problem and I thought the world owed me something. 15, 20 years later, he was right, I did go to jail.
But not that
But the
way.
jail I went to, I made $90,000 a year. The jail I went to, they gave me an unmarked car to drive. The jail I went to, I had benefits. See, he thought I was going as an inmate, but I went as the warden. So it's not what people think about you, it's what you think about yourself.
I would echo everything Todd said, and I'd also say, take a look in the mirror, right? Because the man in the mirror. And if you don't love what you see in that mirror, then you got to change what you are, who you are.
Well, we have run to the end of time on this episode. And I would like to thank Frank Verducci Jr. and the Chief Todd Warren for coming on deadline, and we will continue this year. As I always end, before we can love all people, we must first love ourselves. Thank you. We're going to do this, man. You got to.
I appreciate it.